I get a sense that that person actually cared and their heart was in it to some degree. And I think that this applies whether you go down the street and get a latte or you go to the car dealership and get your car worked on. I think you feel better if you're like, oh, that service provider gave me the impression that like they remembered my name.
Welcome to the People in Legal podcast. This is the Law and Beyond show where we explore everything there is in the expanding legal universe that is law and technology, education and compliance and academia. I am your host, Chantal McNaught. I'm a PhD candidate in law, researching how lawyers navigate the conflicts between law as a profession and law as a business. And I also co-founder 43 Degrees Below, where we help legal professionals navigate AI with AI fluency and ethics. On today's show, we have Ryan McLaughlin, who runs Flannel People Mediation, a virtual divorce mediation practice based in Minnesota, United States. After years practicing law, Ryan shifted to full-time mediation, wanting to help people through divorce without the adversarial theatre that often attaches to traditional litigation. His practice approach is to show up as yourself, focus on what people actually care about, and help them move forward without destroying each other in the process.
I also want to give a special mention to the show's sponsor, that is Novum Global, for bringing this important episode to your ears or here on your screen. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. Ryan, it's really lovely to have you.
It's a pleasure, Chantal. It's been a bit in the making, and I think the questions that you're asking in the podcast are ones that are circulating in some conversations, but it's awesome. Well, I think it's a hope and an aspiration that a result of the podcast is that more and more professionals are having these conversations. I think they are, and so I think this is part of what it's doing is underscoring, highlighting, boldening, deepening. So I'm stoked. Let's do it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And it goes to the heart of what we do on the People in Legal podcast, because it truly is the people in legal. And that's part of what I wanted to have this conversation with you about, is that human-centered practice that anchors with what you're doing in the Flannel People mediation. So when you strip away all the buzzwords, human-centered does have a bit of a thing to it. What does genuinely human-centered mediation look like according to you?
I view it as a good question because it asks to define a buzzword or to define, we hear trauma informed a lot. We hear human centered. We hear like kindness motivated. But what do they mean in practice? How do we operationalize them?
Yeah, what does that kindness motivated even mean?
Yeah, I think, but it doesn't matter what I think. I'll just tell you what I do. So I show up like I show up right now, right? Like I wear sort of like you are, right? I wear the clothes I normally wear. Like what I picked out this morning is what I'm wearing right now. I think that matters. I don't think I think it matters. Because I think it's against the status quo. Maybe not now the status quo, but certainly like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago, that status quo of I wear a suit and I wear a tie and I'm in an office and I'm in a conference room and I have like a yellow legal pad, and nothing against yellow legal pads. So I think the combo of like, I am both smart, experienced, effective, and I show up like you, and you could hear kids like making noise in the background and like kids screaming and like just like the sounds of real life and the looks of real life. I think that's I don't know if that's 70% of the work. So let's say it's 70% of showing up as human, and like talking that way, right? Like I'll say I think that's 70% of 70% of human centeredness, you could say.
Yeah, it's a level of authenticity that takes away from, as you were describing, the charcoal suits, the yellow legal pads. It becomes more around getting the job done. And I know that with a lot of the content that you share about your ongoing journey in this too is very accessible. You know, you don't use legal jargon or anything like that now, do you?
I mean, I think that there's a place for legal jargon. You know, as you were talking, I was like, well, is the sort of casual vibe, I don't think it's always appropriate. I don't think it's always, I think it's I think the reason I'm a fan is because I think it's effective. So, for example, like if I'm going to an ankle surgeon for orthopedic surgery, like I don't necessarily care if they're wearing a flannel shirt. I don't care if they use medical jargon. I just want to know that they're going to do an excellent job with my ankle surgery and they're not going to go into surgery and mess it up. So I want results. And I think everybody wants results. I just think in this profession, delivering results, you get better results if you ironically dress down, speak down, be more like lead with real talk.
And that's the way that you've nailed it on the results part is why I really appreciate having you on the show, because that's a big part of my ongoing PhD research in how lawyers navigate the conflicts between law as a profession and law as a business. Because what is like such a struggle in lawyers delivering results is that they don't know what the client wants. And I think that the big analogy from Clay Christensen's, you know, The Innovator's Dilemma is, you know, people don't buy drills, they buy holes. But oftentimes when it comes to the law, it's very easy to get caught up in the legal practice in the theater of it and forget what the client wants, what the whole is, or the, you know, the solution or the results that they're looking for. So
Mhm.
it sounds like though that you've got, by going on that level and by niching into mediation practice, you have a real sense of what your clients or the people that you're mediating, what results they need.
I mean, I think I'm projecting, right, that people, and I serve, just to be clear, most of my mediation work is in the divorce space. Most of my um, clients are cost sensitive, like they're middle class, struggling. They're cost sensitive, and so that's the pain. Like that's the singular pain point that they'll articulate is we don't want a lawyer battle that costs us like a chunk of our retirement savings. Um, and they have a sense that they don't want to do the whole nightmare lawyer divorce battle that they've seen in movies and heard about in their horror stories. So they know from the get go, like they don't want to ruin their family and they don't want to um, destroy their savings. Now, I think that's not everybody, right? I think some people really do want or need just to sort of wage, whether you say wage war or like have an adversarial process. I think some people need that or want that. Um, so to your point, what does the client want? What does the client need? Yeah, what I'm going for is I want to deliver a result, which in this case is solving a conflict, and I want to deliver it as cleanly, as cheaply as possible so that people have a good experience and they talk about it with their friends and family and it creates a referral funnel. Um,
Mm.
and the
Hmm.
danger, I think, if you if you don't do it that way, if people had a bad experience, I mean, it's a hard time. Divorce is like not a happy, lovely, wonderful time. So if you just do, I'll provide the service, um, and you do the job, and like people are just, I don't know. I worry that you have to deliver, even in tough times, a good experience as you can. And good here is not only efficient and effective in terms of brokering a deal, but I think you have to differentiate from the competition by saying, like, I get a sense that that person actually cared and their heart was in it to some degree. And I think that this applies whether you go down the street and get a latte or you go to the car dealership and get your car worked on. I think you feel better if you're like, oh, that service provider gave me the impression that, like, they remembered my name, right? That means a lot. They care. I think we all want to feel that way, and we want to spend our money where we're treated that way.
Yeah, it is an experience type product, really. And at the end of the day, it's exactly what you said. Like, there can be a brokered deal, but without that experience element, why are you here? I want to pivot a little bit though to around what the lawyers need, and how you've got this ongoing exploration as well, because a lot of you were letting me know a lot of your work comes from lawyers. And what are the top things that lawyers are looking for when referring those clients to mediation? And do you have any stories that you can share around the sorts of things that can go wrong in those mediations, or in those referral conversations?
Yeah, I think number one, lawyers want the result. They want can this mediator is the mediator competent to resolve the case? They don't want, like anybody, like if you're going to refer someone, you want to know that the person's going to do good work. You don't want to refer someone and have them have a bad experience. And so I think that's number one is how do you prove, particularly if like if you're new to a space and you want referrals from attorneys, how can you show the attorneys without them having experienced you yet, and this could be through social media otherwise, that you're effective and will effectively um, attend to what is emotional, has legal landscape, has sort of logistical landscape in terms of finances. So I think lawyers first and foremost want the job well done. Um, and I think they have high standards because, for them to refer to you, it's almost always like they almost always brand it in their mind as a high conflict situation, right? Because if it was low conflict, they would just handle it.
Mm.
Um, so I think that's number one is, and as you would expect, lawyers want the job done. Um, where things go awry, um, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a notion that there's a notion of like what's a successful mediation. A successful mediation is when you get the job done, when there's a signed agreement or almost signed agreement at the end and the parties are shaking their head yes. But I think that's too narrow, and I think attorneys are striving for that as well, to deliver a successful mediation. But I think and I don't think this is just patting the mediator on the back and sort of building new business for them. I like to say that, like, there's no failed mediation. If you guys walk out of here and you're in total disagreement, like, maybe it's a win because you understand each other's positions better. Maybe it's a win because you spent 2 hours listening to each other, whereas you've never listened to each other for 2 hours before. Maybe it's a win because you tried something other than litigation and you acquired new information. You put
Mm.
a deposit in the piggy bank that, like, hey, there's 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 maybe some hope that we can resolve this thing. Um, so when you say, like, what can go wrong, um, I think anything that I think a mediator or an attorney or a client, it could be anyone. Um, I think they want results fast. We all want results, like, super fast, and I just think sometimes it's possible and sometimes it takes time. And I think the mistake, um, I think, is being too hasty or too impatient or just not understanding that it takes time to unwind these conflicts.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where I'm thinking about, time heals wounds, that
Mm,
aspect, but it's also about that process. So it's a fine balance of, achieving the objective, but then realizing that there are still measurements of success that's more than just getting getting a deal. It is about how the parties feel about it at the end of the day, because, is it true though that, some of them can fall over, like a deal that's signed can then be reneged and then it's a high cost litigation. So it's like it's part of a robust process is making sure that everybody is taken on that journey.
Yeah, I think, and I just want to say too, I can't remember I think your original question was like, what are the lawyers looking for? I think what they're not looking for is experimentalism. Like they're not looking to have some woo-woo experience, right? Which is like exactly the kind of thing that I'm super interested in providing and offering. Like I want to do box breathing. I want everyone to like stand up and like do some qigong. I want like everyone to wear the color blue visibly on their shirt so that it can like send trust signals versus wearing like an orange or red or angry color. I want us to write on a piece of paper the 3 things we're most afraid of, and then to crumple up the piece of paper and then put it in the garbage and not speak about like.
But all of those things aren't woo-woo. They actually have some strong evidentiary, like there's some research in that, because I've done all of those things managing my team. So it's not.
I think
they have
you're
their
right.
place.
They have their place. I think they are data backed, 100%. I wouldn't be interested in them if they weren't data backed. And when I say woo woo, I just mean like you face a lot of heavy eyebrows and a lot of serious faces and a lot of people who are just like not accustomed to it. Whether it's woo, it's just like, hey, this is new, this is different, this is not what we're used to. And I think anytime you do that, but that's why I'm so excited. Like this hasn't been done. Like we haven't tried wearing all blue in a mediation and like seeing if it de-escalates things in some like strange way. We know that like from advertising that colors matter, but like we don't apply the psychology to this practice. It's crazy to me. Right?
Mm. Yeah. And I think that part is important, but that's, I guess, part of lawyer, like it's almost as if there's messaging, because thinking about exploring what you're doing as a career path for our listeners who might be considering, alternatives to the traditional legal practice, which is a big part of who our listeners are, as well as, those that are in the legal tech industry as their own careers. So thinking about how you end up with 2 different kinds of clients. There's the people that you're mediating, but then there's the lawyers are also your clients. So you're having to serve multiple masters, so to speak. I really we had a conversation a little while ago about how some of the things I was reading, especially in the American literature around the legal profession, viewing a lot of the legal profession moving towards more commercialism. And there was this commentary about lawyers are mercenaries. And that really struck something with you. So I want to unpack it in real time on how that kind of framing could, how that influences the perspectives that people have towards the entire process. Because I dare say that people who aren't familiar with the legal world wouldn't realize that there's a difference between attorney work and mediation work. They'd probably just see you all like it is all the same. So like, where do you think that that perspective of mercenary, the client is the fundamental, might impact how you practice your approach to the human-centered outcomes that you're looking at? Sorry, there's a lot in there. Pick what you want.
I mean, I'll just say that, yeah, okay, so you said lawyers as mercenaries, and I think if you do a keyword search, it's probably also lawyers as bulldogs, or I want a bulldog attorney, I want a shark attorney, or maybe I need this. And I think in a lot of contexts that makes sense. Like if you're in a criminal defense situation and you're wrongfully accused, or if you're like you need robust, what's the word, zealous advocacy, right? Like we need the sort of like in a criminal context, you're against the whole um
The
the
whole system. And
the whole
I'm so
system.
sorry. I'm really excited to interrupt you, Ryan, because when you say about bulldogs, there was literally a marketing campaign by Shine Lawyers, which was one of the large law firms in Australia. In fact, it was the first law firm to float on the stock market as well when Australia allowed that of law firms. And their marketing campaign featured Erin Brockovich. And the whole brand message was, "We are the bulldogs of the legal industry."
What kind of law? Like what kind of practice?
Personal injury.
Okay. Yeah, so like we defend the people, and like we'll take the insurance companies to task.
Yep, yep,
Um
that's right.
uh I like it. I like it in that context. Yeah, because I think that there is the vibe of we need people to fight for us as the people, and we're gonna get taken advantage of by these big corporations who have no care, and they're just um what I think is more what I'm interested in. Um and I don't know if you see a problem with that kind of language of the bulldogs in that situation. But what I see as problematic is it might transcend family law. It probably does, but it's the notion that like an eye for an eye, I think, is embedded in the legal system. Like, this is why we have party A versus party B. It's the versus, it's the V, I think, that's the problem. As if, I think our goal, if we step back and you're like, what's our goal? Why are we doing this? Like, what do we need to make people whole? Perhaps in the insurance company case where you have a personal injury, you do need to extract money from someone to make someone else whole. You do need to extract money from the insurance company. But in the family law context, it's a lot less clear to me why there's a versus, right? Like,
Mm.
meaning like, why are we sitting at the opposite ends of the table? And this is systemically, and having a judge decide. It seems like a very system feature of the system that I think is old. You could say it's antiquated, but it has deep roots. And lawyers are the participants, the building blocks of the system. So
The officers of the court that
the
they
officers of the
serve
court.
that. Yeah. And there's this great quote by a jurist, and in the US, he published this massive treatise. It's an interesting read because he goes through all this history as well across the world. But this one quote, so Julius Henry Cohen, and he says, "We are the officers of the court and the slaves to trade." And the whole point of what he was trying to say is this inherent conflict that occurs when you do need to zealously look after your client's interests, but at the same time, you're serving this overarching system and purpose-driven thing. So it's more than just the singular case that you're on. It's what's that case in the context of what justice looks like for the whole of society, and that's that inherent role of the lawyer. And it's
And I,
kicked off a whole bunch of conversations.
and I think you asked our listeners are people contemplating careers in the law, people contemplating technology, people contemplating the use of AI, making change in the space. I think that like, I mean, and we were talking about like, why does wearing a blue shirt? What about box breathing? I think like the intersection of all these things is, can someone take technology and say like, okay, great, we're going to do everything via Zoom and it's all going to be color coded blue. And then we're going to have like an interruption. You're going to wear like your Apple Watch, and anytime your beats per minute elevates over like 100 or whatever it is for you, like we're going to do a mandatory box breathing for 30 seconds until like we have the data that you're actually thinking with your prefrontal cortex. And we're going to call this app whatever. We're going to provide it for free to all family law professionals. And then like blah 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 blah. Here's how we're gonna monetize it. But I think that the way I see I don't know if I'm not making any predictions, but that seems interesting to me. That seems exciting.
Mm.
Like trying to find these private market solutions to these systems problems and get people to buy in that way. And
Absolutely, it has to solve the problem first, like, and to pivot to the tech space as well. Tony Favell, he's written this great book, Build, because he talks about how he worked with Steve Jobs on the first, like the iPod and the first iterations of the iPhone. He ended up going on and founding Nest, that was later acquired by Google. And he talks about the necessity to build painkillers, not vitamins. And
yeah,
that is, I feel, where, you and I can talk for hours on what are the pain points of the system and how do you build in painkillers. And you're absolutely right. Like, it's inherent within the system to make it ends up causing people to think in their lizard brain without their prefrontal cortex. And that then has a snowball effect. So looking at how do you keep people into a more rational frame of mind so that they can make important decisions that are in their best interests, I think is going to be an essential feature of what the justice system will hopefully start to look like, with all of these emerging technologies all converging onto us and all of our social change that's happening right now too.
yeah. I mean, what's the response? I mean, I'm just thinking like, is that right? Like, how do we do more than? I'm just thinking in my mind, like, how do we be more than just um naively hopeful or kind of passively hopeful? Like, how do we? I mean, I'm 40 years old. Like, how do I speak to somebody who's 35 or 30 or 20 and be like, yeah, there's a real mechanism. There's a real shot that you could have this kind of new, let's just say human centric, because we've been talking about this framework or pilot project or blah, 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 whatever. And maybe the answer is you just have to start somewhere. Like, you have to start small. You have to start doing something, do something and grow it, grow it, grow it like you would anything else,
Yeah. Do the
which
work.
is, I get, you have to do the work. That's right.
Yeah. No, I think that is absolutely right. We can't just be hopeful. And it is a little bit naive just to do that. Like, hope without action is useless. But when you take a level of optimism and then you use that to just constantly chip away at a problem that needs to be solved, that's where real change happens. And it's not easy. It's simple, but not easy. Look, this is we haven't even gone through half of our questions, but we have reached that time, the special part of the Law and Beyond show, where I shuffle really terribly these conversation cards and make my
Ooh,
guests really nervous.
I'm sweating.
Because we do a little bit of preparation. It's helpful to have a couple of questions prepared and some ideas of what we're going to discuss. But this is the truly raw part of the pod that I try not to edit too much either, because look how terrible I'm. For those that are watching on YouTube, or you can hear me terribly shuffle them. So, Ryan, if you won $10 million tomorrow, how would you spend it?
Brutal. Just brutal. Uh, that's such a difficult question. How long of an answer do you want? Is this like a, I'll be brief. I think like this is my sort of pain point, right? Is because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner. I'm the sole provider for my family. And so there's this incredible pressure, self-imposed, but also realistic, to build a business, to provide for 3 young children and a family. And it's really, really, really hard. It's really, really, really hard. And I'll just say that to validate everybody else who's out there hustling, grinding, trying to make content on LinkedIn or X or Threads or Facebook and build an audience, building podcasts. it's hard. And I think we all want $10 million. Like, who cares what I would do with $10 million? Like, it's just like, that is, I guess that number represents you don't have to work again. You don't have to, you don't have to struggle again. I think for me, I'll just end with this. I had an MRI done on my ankle a couple of days ago, and like, the MRI is like the big, you like go in a tube.
They're super loud,
super loud. They put
scary, even
scary. So they put earplugs in your ears, and then they put headphones on, and like above me, there's like this beautiful glass mural of like a blue sky, but it was like a winter sky with like tree branches with icicles on them, which like it's super snowy and icy right here right now. It was just beautiful. And I listened to my favorite artist, Bon Iver, which is sort of like this sad, quiet, sort of melancholy. And it was like I had my glasses off and I had to take all my nose piercings out, and I felt super naked. I was naked. I was wearing the scrubs, and I felt like, man, this is like, it was just like out of body kind of, I was thinking about what it would be like to die. And I think the project is just like, the $10 million question is like, how do you live? Just like, how do you live and be grateful that you're alive and not get so distracted? And even though you have to be distracted and focused on, here's the podcast, I'm doing the podcast, I'm gonna blah blah blah, do other things. How do you do all the things and still marry that to the perspective of, and yet I'm super grateful to be alive, and here's the 17 things I'm super grateful for. Like, that's my challenge for 2026.
Wow. And that is such a beautiful answer. Can I just add to that? Because it's your response wasn't, I do this and I do that, and I'd acquire this or whatever. Your response to a very, I love the question. I ask people that all the time because it's a really great focusing question on what's important to you. But your response to that was gratitude. And that's beautiful. We need more of that in the world. And if you exercise that, frequently, then I think we're all going to just really appreciate what we have right now, because this is what we have and it's beautiful. And I'm grateful for you, Ryan. So thank you.
Thanks for hosting. Thanks for such great questions. Thanks for all the prep and stuff that goes into this. Much appreciated. You're the best, Chantal.
Oh, absolute pleasure. We'll pop in the show notes the link to Funnel People Mediation for any attorneys looking for mediation services in Minnesota. And thanks for listening.